places to be.
We all got here by bus on the new transit route.
Oh, yeah, for today.
The interurban.
I think one of the stops is at the advertiser.
That's a good place for it, yeah.
Yeah. On? All right, we'll call this meeting to order. Please join me in the pledge.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Chaplain Kirchner will lead us in prayer.
Heavenly Father, please be with us today and helping us make the decisions that are best for those we represent. Please also, in a special way, watch over those who are protecting our freedoms and their families. We ask all this through your Son. Amen.
Roll call.
Commissioner Thomas?
Here.
Commissioner Kirchner?
Here.
Commissioner Ferguson?
Here. I'll accept a motion to approve the digital audio video recording of the previous board session from Tuesday, October 22nd. So moved. Second.
Okay.
Roll call.
Commissioner Ferguson?
Yes.
Commissioner Kirchner?
Yes.
Commissioner Thomas?
Here. Yes. All right. Adjustments. Other adjustments? Okay, we have regional planning here with our bus transit.
So I'm not going to present. We're going to let Ray present from RLS and Associates. They are working on the bus transit plan for the city of Tiffin and surrounding area. We've emailed the final draft to the commissioners for your review to look at, have it ahead of time. And now Ray's going to present to you on it, get some questions answered, and if you have any thoughts, and then he'll be presenting to the city of Tiffin within the next few weeks as well. So we just want to get it out there and get your guys' thoughts and let you mull it over and tell us if there's anything you'd like to change or all that good stuff. So from there, I'll let Ray proceed.
Welcome.
Morning, Ray.
Good morning.
Pleasure to be here.
I've learned a lot about the Midwest. I'm from North Carolina, and I've thoroughly enjoyed coming here. And I was mentioning earlier, I thought we had large agricultural farms until I came here, and beautiful area though.
Really turn you into a Buckeye fan yet?
Not yet. I'm an NC State Wolfpack guy. So. But a pleasure to be here, and thoroughly enjoyed over the last year working with Charlene, with the SCAT, and all the stakeholders in this community. And congratulations! I just saw that you've won an award for your downtown achievements. But I think it's called Heritage Ohio. It really didn't surprise me after going to the downtown summit. All the good things that are going on here. So as I mentioned, I'm with RLS and Associates. I think on your sheet it says RLF, but it's RLS. Robbie L. Sorrells is our president. I've got about just a little background on me, so you know I just didn't fall off the apple cart. I've been dealing with this for about 32 years. Last 14 years as a transit administrator, and about 4 years as a consultant. Christy Campbell could not be here today due to a conflict. However, she will give the presentation for the council meeting in November. So you may already know a little bit about this, and I'll go through this rather quickly, but this was started out as a joint partnership with the county, city, the planning commission, SCAT, economic partnership, the Opportunity Center. So what do we do when we do a transit plan like this? We have to learn the existing conditions in the area and really determine if you're going to have a fixed route service, which is above and beyond, and that was really the push that we kept hearing. We want something different than the demand response, which is like the door-to-door van service. And you have to really learn the community, and I think we did that and came up with a design for fixed route that we'll be going over. So what are we doing here today? Again, any information you have that you want more information or adjustments, possible changes. We're going to talk about some of the funding strategies, and then again the council meeting in November. And I guess this is just to receive for information right now, Charlene.
Yes.
and further finalization of the plan will come later, and that will help us determine an implementation schedule. So, got a lot of feedback from the community with surveys. The Downtown Summit, there were surveys there. At the county fair, one-on-one interviews with representatives from Tiffin and Heidelberg universities. And again, trying to look at the areas where we think the bottom line is you need to generate ridership. Transit is not going to pay for itself with fares, but you still want to achieve, in this case, you want to achieve at least double or more what the door-to-door service is, the demand response service CAT's doing now. I think you can achieve higher than that, but we'll go over that later. And you have to determine where those routes are, where they end, and how people can transfer between the routes. So we had follow-up meetings, really got into the weeds in the April 30th meeting with the steering committee, and really fine-tuned some of the routes and made a couple tweaks to that and looked at different funding scenarios. So there's three primary service areas. What I call the spine of the system is the east-west corridor service, and that goes from the YMCA through Heidelberg, through downtown, to the Walmart Supercenter, Mercy Tiffin, and then it would return. I'll go over the transfer hub in a minute. The South Corridor service, that's really more of a human service, social service. It's only a Monday through Friday. We'll go over that some more. But at least it provides some lifeline mobility services for people that really need to get to those agencies. And then the final, we heard a lot back about some challenges with the industrial park and keeping employment and transportation issues, and the one park that kind of rose above the rest. I know you have a few areas, but had the largest number of employees was an industrial park service area to the north, and it loops around, and we'll show you that, and serves a number of different industries. So again, we met with Heidelberg. Got pretty positive feedback from both of them, kind of excited about it, and a willingness to have key stops in the middle of their campus, particularly Heidelberg. Particularly Tiffin. We'll go over that in a minute. But they really saw it as an asset. They agreed that if this was something the community was going to provide, that they would do their best to really promote it with their students, put it on their website, educational opportunities and awareness. And they did show a willingness, not a commitment at this point, but a willingness to offer some support in the terms of locations for stops, maybe potential benches, as well as, we'll go over later, what I call a U-Pass program for their students, a university pass program where they would get to ride for free, but the universities would pay. And this is an example of what it could be here. They would receive a 25% discount on fare for their students, and in turn would pay. And again, in year one, it's a projected estimated number of trips per student per year. And this is low, it's pretty conservative, but I think you're better off starting out the first year that way. To us, this is the better approach rather than just asking for a lump sum, because if you ask for a lump sum and then they go back and they look at the statistics, they could have ended up paying more than the average person at $1 per one-way trip. So this kind of sets the benchmark from the get-go, and nobody should get upset later. So here's that east-west route. Kind of talked about it a little bit earlier. To the far right, as I know it's hard to see, is the YMCA, Heidelberg University downtown, and here's where it goes. Takes a little jog off to the right, and I think that's Miami, Sandusky. No, it hits Sandusky with a right on Sandusky, left on Miami, and there's really an ideal place for a transfer hub based on the wide area of the road that pulls out at the Heminger, is it Heminger or Heminger? Heminger Center. And Tiffin was open to that, and that was a huge advantage when looking at all this. So it would loop around and then get back on Perry and then Market, and tremendous amount of commercial, as you all are aware, along Market. And it seems like every time I come, there's a new fast food restaurant opening or some store there. I couldn't believe it. They're moving quickly. So that's great to see for the community. It would take a little jog off and make it more convenient at one of the shopping centers there and get back on. It would then go to, this map is, we have to make a correction, it's going to turn right into Walmart and go through at the Supercenter and come out and then go to Mercy Tiffin Hospital, and then it would return back. It goes by Buffalo Wild Wings, which I've become familiar with, but I much rather like Madison Street.
Wow.
The chunks are killer. I love the chunks. I had them last night. So I'll be sad when this project ends. Okay, the south route, again, this is more of that lifeline, social services, human services, and we'll go over the times of service here in a minute. But basically, the transfer hub that we talked about, which allows people to transfer from the east-west to the south and from the industrial. It would go through town and then head out, I think it's Melmore, St. Francis Home. It would do a loop through there and then go down to a number of critical agencies at the southernmost portion. The industrial South Peak, this route, you know, to be efficient with it, other than that, there's some residential in that area, but it's primarily for the employment and to really, you know, be cost effective and efficient. We're only going to run that at shift change. And we did some research on shift change, and I think we've got it nailed down pretty good for the key large numbers of shift change all the way to midnight. So you'll have a driver come on and run that just for that time to get them connected, where they could then transfer to east-west. Late at night, it gets a little tricky in terms of their return home. So, and then this is kind of the whole coverage area, all the routes put together. And, you know, I think based on some of the survey work, people, you know, around the country, they will ride bikes to stops. And so when the capital request goes in for grants for vehicles, recommend a 2-station bike rack. That's what most systems are using. I would not go with 3. I've heard a lot of nightmare stories about it being so far out and they're getting torn up on turns. And then bus stop signs would be needed at different locations throughout the city. Maybe a few, maybe at the university, maybe that's something they could partner with the city, county, and provide those themselves. That's not unusual for universities to do that.
Ray, can I interject?
Uh-huh.
For the bus stop shelters, SCAT already has the money for, I think, up to 6 shelters. So that money's already been secured. We already have that ready to go. So I just want to let you know that for 6 different stops.
Thank you.
Yep.
And that's the area I was talking about earlier at the Heminger Center. You can see how the asphalt swings pretty far out to the right there and gives ample room for 1, 2, maybe 3 even buses to pull off and still be able to make the left turn. That's just an overview of that area. Heidelberg, I think that's called the Commons Building or something like that. They agree that that would be an ideal location for a stop there. And then these are the areas of downtown that are covered. It's pretty good coverage. And if it doesn't hit on one street, you're talking about a one block, 1.5 block walk to anywhere. This is where it would loop around at the YMCA, which is really ideal. Sometimes you have systems at the end of the route and it's a really difficult place. And people usually don't talk about it, but it's really important that either at the end of the route or at the transfer hub, there's a place for drivers to be able to take a break, use a restroom, that kind of thing. This would be a big advantage there. And that's just an aerial view of where it'll loop around. I think there's a very large park over to the left, and I'm sorry, I forgot the name of that park. Yeah. East-west, this is just showing, you know this area, just tons of trip generators. And these are not just for people going to eat. These are a lot of service workers. If you're a manager of a fast food place or a grocery store, it's really good when you're hiring people and you're a little uncertain about their mobility, you know, how stable that is to have a backup. And that's something when you're marketing the system and you have brochures. I mean, I personally did it. I would go door to door and meet with the managers of all the stores. And we had a lot of service workers that use the service. That's the Walmart Supercenter, and that's where it will loop around. And then it'll have a loop through the Mercy Tiffin Hospital area. We didn't have enough time in the schedule because we wanted to run half hour. I should have mentioned that from the YMCA to Tiffin is roughly takes 26, 27 minutes. So if you go any further off of that, you want to keep it at half-hour headways. And it just makes it so much more simple for the public to understand when they look at the schedule. They know that it's running. It's going to be hourly service, but one leg of the trip would be a half an hour. That's the industrial park area we talked about with Sunoco and Owens and Taiho. I guess that's how you pronounce it. Okay. St. Francis Home. A lot of senior citizens what I found, even though you have the demand response service, when we made a loop just like this in areas like that, we were amazed at how many preferred not having to call, get reservations, but they just knew the bus was going to come by there, and they used it for shopping, hair appointments, everything under the sun. So that's got good potential, and then that's that southern leg with the social service areas. So looking at Monday through Thursday, 5:45 a.m. to 8 p.m. And that seems early, but if people are trying to get to the industrial park, you want to be able to make that at the shift change. And then we heard a lot of push for wanting late night service on Friday and Saturday. But again, that would be only during the times the college is in, just to keep costs, control cost a little bit, and then when they're out on winter and summer break, it would end at 8. Now all this is subject to change based on feedback. Again, that's just Monday through Friday. It doesn't make sense to go there before or after those hours when those agencies aren't open. And the industrial route, that just shows, I don't have all the shift changes on that one. Well, there you go. That has it right there. Those are the different times it would run. A lot of other considerations when you're starting up a service like this, bus stop signs. You may need to come up with a long-range plan to fill that gap between the curb and the sidewalk to meet ADA requirements. As long as you have a plan, you may not have it from day one, but you need to work on having a plan. If you've got 60 stops, and I think that's roughly what you have in the 3 routes, you'll need to come up with a plan to at least demonstrate that you're working on it over the next 5-7 years. And we were able to do that pretty well with working with Public Works Department, and they would just build it into their budget. And you can contract out, or you can have that crew fill in that gap. And that's honestly one of the first things I noticed when I drove through the town, is that there's some areas where Typically, I see a 2 to 3 foot section of grass between the sidewalk and curb. You've got some areas that are more like 6, 7, 8. So it may require a little bit more concrete.
Right, let me go to bullet point 2 there.
Uh-huh.
The stops themselves will be ADA compliant, but how many of the buses will be able to handle somebody in a chair?
2 wheelchair securement areas.
Okay. Each of the buses will be able to do that.
And I can't recall Mary Habig of SCAT, the specifications for the buses that she's asking for. I can't remember if they have a lift or a ramp. But as you move forward, I would highly recommend ramps on the vehicles because of the timing involved. With a ramp, you can have somebody in a wheelchair get on and secure them 2 to 3 minutes quicker than you can with the
I
lift.
think most of those are lifts from what I remember seeing.
Okay.
Was there any consideration to, for example, a couple of stops, as I read through your report, very good, by the way, but like St. Francis, for example, has a couple of buses that will have to be utilized less. Is there any thought about the positive effects it would bring to them to augment some of the offset of costs of them not having to transport folks if there's a regular route, or if they would consider using one of their buses as a backup?
We did not ask them that, but that's something we can do.
I mean, I think the same thing is, do any other stops have any buses that they would ordinarily use?
I don't know of any other. Do you, Charlene?
No, I do not, and that was a good point you brought up, Mike, but I
Yeah,
do
but
not think there's any other
yeah.
ones that
Yeah,
would.
St. Francis either has 2 or 3.
And they do the grocery shopping runs and things like that?
Yeah, and they're ADA compliant and all those kinds of
Okay.
things.
That was actually my first job out of the Air Force at a retirement community, managing the shopping runs at a large retirement community. But we will we'll talk to them
Okay.
and see. Again, they probably won't be able to get commitment, but at least plant the seed and get them thinking about that. I think that is a very, very good idea. And marketing, you have to market the service. You have to have fare boxes, and you can go with the lower end stainless steel mailboxes, which Mary's got in her grant. I mentioned bike racks, and then a lot of policies and procedures, and we have tons of examples we can provide. We do work all over the country. This is what I was talking about earlier. You see the area between the curb and the sidewalks in some areas. Here's this is a less extreme example where that would not cost a whole lot of money at all. So branding. So one thing, when you have a service that's new like this, it starts up, you don't want the public to be confused with it. Oh, this is the regular SCAT, demand response door-to-door service. We really recommend that it has an entirely different look with a unique brand, and I think the survey work, it was very close between Tiffin Transit and T Squared. So, you know, again, recognizing that SCAT is the operator, it needs to be somewhere on the bus. And in marketing, use those vehicles, you know, there's charter regulations, but there's ways that you can prevent non-compliance with those and get involved in special event shuttles, media, newspaper, radio, food drives on the bus where they bring a can, try. I highly recommend when this service starts up, the first month be free for people just to get on and try it. At least 1 month, maybe 2. These are some of the projections. Year 1, 3.5 passengers per hour, 24,000 trips. These are really, I like to be very conservative on these estimates. I did this in Rock Hill, South Carolina. They had a brand new fixed route system start up in July, and they doubled what we projected. We just didn't know how many of the students, and that's the big wild card here. We think the students will ride a lot, but I didn't want to overestimate that. So, you know, you may be able to go 33% higher than these estimates, which is still, in year 2, you're already double what the SCAT performance is or close to it. And this was not in the report, but I may add it before the final, because it really, when I went back and looked at this, there's about 9,000 citizens in Tiffin, this is based on the American Community Survey 5-year estimates, that either don't have a vehicle at all or only have one. And there's another almost 2,000 that walk or bike to get to work. I won't go through every one of these, but the general consensus on the survey feedback was very positive about having public transit bus routes, as you can see. And they thought the service coverage that we worked together and designed was good. And they would ride, a lot of them said they would ride bikes and be able to load them up. That was the name we talked about. This is just some of the comments. So, what does it cost? Transit, I mean, these are the fully allocated line item costs when you look at the total service hours that are necessary to provide the service that we've laid out here. And transportation, when you add maintenance, insurance, and drivers that are trained and do drug and alcohol testing, and the overhead with dispatch and everything, you know, it's not super inexpensive. Everything costs. And this is the budget. The $482,000 you see here, SCAT has already put that into a new funding program that Ohio DOT just came out with in the last couple months. It's called OPT2. It's very new. Right now, they're only planning out for 2 years. There's about $6.5 million for rural transit. It's competitive, of course, but they put in that, SCAT put in that request for FY21, and that covers 100% for now on the operating and capital. From what my understanding and talking to the president of my company, who stays in close contact with ODOT on a regular basis, is that there's uncertainty after that second year. You know, it all depends on the systems and how well they use it, and are they spending the money, and are they getting good bang for the buck, so to speak. If they're not, you know, there may be politically some decisions that are made that funding for this type of system is going to have to fall back and rely on the Federal Transit Administration Section 5311 program, and that covers 50%. And that's shown in the Exhibit 16 on the bottom. The top one pretty much shows it covering everything, and actually you get a surplus. And unless ODOT comes out with rules that you have to subtract your fares and advertising revenues. They might. This is still under development with ODOT. I mean, we were just learning about this a couple of weeks ago. Capital cost, some of these go above and beyond what SCAT put in their capital budget, but most of them are pretty much the same. I went into a little bit more detailed breakout of some of the capital items, but they have ordered FY21 4 vehicles to run the fixed route service. And I think that includes the bike racks. I think there's money for stop signs installation, but I put some costs down there based on my knowledge of that. And one thing I'd really, and that may be a little low, the last one on real-time bus information. If this system gets up and running, highly encourage you to seek something like I talk about here with real-time bus information. Systems throughout the country have moved rapidly to that the last 5 years. And what it is, it's a free app you pull up and you can see exactly where your bus is when you're waiting at a bus stop sign. Takes some mystery out. Capital budget, that relies on 100% OPT2 money. And this is a 80-10-10 split with the 5311 for capital. That's the ODOT funding that they get. And that's a steady, reliable source of funds that's been around for 30, 40 years. Probably want to think about having an advisory committee. And these are just suggested members that would be on it. And I mentioned the city engineer because they may be involved in some of those infrastructure improvements. Planning department, you may want to look at your ordinances. There may be things you can do as new areas are developing around town where you can require the developer to do some of that concrete pad work as part of the site development. I've seen that done a lot, and I have examples of that kind of wording. So when it might begin, as I said, July 1, 2020, if all the funding comes through and the vehicles arrive. And so the grant's been submitted, and I'm here for any questions that you have.
Can you go back to the overview map of the
All the routes?
corridors? When you're talking about these stops, those are fixed stops, so you can't hail the bus?
Good point. And I highly recommend that you don't have wave-down stops for
Okay.
safety reasons. You should look at it, and that goes into way more detail than was in our scope of services, but you really need to evaluate every single stop. Where is the safest location so you don't have rear ends, so people don't get hit, so they have an area where they can cross the street. And it's, a lot of factors that go into that. And so the stops that I picked out are just preliminary.
Yeah.
You'll need more. You'll get your traffic engineer involved or whoever.
But your recommendation is fixed stops, no hail stops?
Absolutely.
Can you just show me the map real quick?
Yeah.
Can you get back there? My question is, like, I get the intuition by the map,
Mm-hmm.
but where are we hitting the population centers? Like, I can get St. Francis and the universities, but to go to the industrial buildings, where are we picking up people who would be riding to work?
Well, that was one area that I think the mayor even brought up, and that's why we extended the south route. I don't think this has got a pointer. The south route here, that covers, typically people will walk or ride a bike a quarter to a half mile. So when you draw that line around some of these areas, you may not capture, there were trade-offs in the decision making, and they were tough because we went along some of these other roads where there was some low income. But I think in the future, that's something you want to continue to entertain. It could be one thing we did not have in the plan, but there could be a SCAT service that perhaps, you have that now. You have general public service on the door-to-door. There may be a way to set up some kind of seamless fare structure where they could take somebody to a stop if they're further into a residential area and ride the fixed route but not have to pay again. I would recommend that. I mean, these, when you start getting into all the residential areas, it gets a little challenging in terms of timing, the width of the roads, safety issues. And
So, I
things
mean,
like that.
from a standpoint of arteries that will take folks to different work sites, I mean, we kind of,
Mhm.
my concern is that we pick winners and losers sometimes.
Mhm.
So we go to the North End Industrial Park for Taiho, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
So have we done any, do we know what the concentration of employment is there versus, let's say, Mall Road?
We did
where-
that. Mhm.
Okay, we're like, Laminate Technologies is and American Fine Center and those places. So the North End Industrial Park has a higher concentration of.
I think it was like
employment?
1,800 employees.
How many?
I think it was around 1,800.
I think so. It was a much higher concentration at the north end versus out where Land Tech and American Fine Center and Fry Foods
It was
are at.
at
There was
least
considerable
double.
difference.
It was at
Well,
least,
the only point that I will make,
Yeah.
Charlene, about that is that's a point that's being, that area is being further developed, right? I mean,
Right.
there's a potential,
Mhm.
there's a 50,000 square foot building out there waiting to be occupied.
mhm.
And I wonder if time goes on, at least from a planning standpoint, that really is the area that economic development plans to expand.
Okay.
Is there an alternative thought about coming back down Tiber Road as part of the route? Dropping people off there, then maybe in the,
It's pretty simple to do.
We
Yeah.
had, so when we first started looking this over and looked at the industrial routes, we actually kind of sent suggestions to Ray and everybody kind of talked about going out to that area, going down Tiber Road, how easy that loop would be to make. Eventually, yes, that is a great plan to add in. Right now, cost effectively, we can't add that in. But as it grows and we can increase the ridership and we can prove the worth, then we can extend the route to move it out that way, which would be very easy
Now,
to
we
plan
could,
and
we could
extend.
put in the plan dotted lines for potential future
okay.
routes. Is
Well,
that
my winners
something
and
you would
losers,
want?
I mean, it's very difficult to match employees' job skills to employment these days, right? And if you're able to do that, and let's say Sunoco had an advantage over American Fine Center, because I can just hear this coming, because they've got transportation available. So guys that work in American Fine Center say, well, geez, I don't have to have a car. You know, I can save myself how much in gas a week if I go to work for Sunoco. I mean, just as an example.
Right.
So, that,
That's fair. I
playing chess a
understand.
little bit, that
But
next move concerns me.
Would it
too.
help if we showed potential future routes?
Yeah, and then, right, that's what I'm saying, you know, if we're saying, okay, this is the immediate, you know, the initial, the beta plan, right? But we recognize the fact that there's gonna be a need to get people to other, sites as time goes on.
I think we can do that. Well, we will do that. Not I think, we will do that. We'll add that to the plan with some,
I added it to the
okay.
to-do list, so.
Good-
yeah, I
good
like that.
points. Very
Thank
good
you very
points.
much, Mike.
We've had, yeah, I know exactly what, we've had to do that with some other transit plans.
So on the capital cost for the buses, did you say that there is a grant money available for that as well?
There is, capital and operating. Again, this new funding program, if you were able to secure that in the FY '21 funding, it would be 100% with this new funding source. If it wasn't funded through that, then you'd be looking at an 80-10-10 on the vehicles. And
And then the operating costs? what did you say?
operating costs with the potential 1 year of the program, if that was funded, it would be 100%
Funded by,
funded through the general revenues at the state of Ohio through this new funding source. They transferred money into the general fund, is my understanding.
okay, well, here's my concern about that. First of all, I'm very positive about this, I think it's a great idea. But with many new programs, with many new initiatives, we have the initial funds because people have worked hard in the beginning to find them, right? And then 2 years down the road, somebody says, here's your bill for 1.5 million to run this thing, but we've got no funding source. We've got all the equipment. Who's gonna fund it? As a city, I mean, has the county made any commitment to that, or do they need to make any commitment to that long-term? Has the city gonna make any commitment? Will there be collaboration? Will the county just say,
Yeah.
this is a city of Tiffin thing, to hell with it, let them do it, or vice versa? You know, I want this to be ongoing. I don't wanna start something that all of a sudden becomes unfunded.
Totally understand, that's why I made that call to get the latest on the funding source. And so the question is, the position is, do you go in it saying we might get 1 year 100% funded, but the reality is we need to plan on the Section 5311 money that is a more consistently funded program that has the 50-50 operating? Or do you just wait and just have it under the more secure 5311 operating? Maybe you apply, from a competitive standpoint, there's not enough money of the 5311 to spread around the state, And then a prioritization, do we go with the east-west route first? Do we add the industrial second? Do we do the south route third?
Okay.
So there's gonna have to be strategy involved, but I totally, because I personally, when I was a transit director, they had this, what they called CMAQ money.
Yeah.
And after year 3, it would run out.
Yeah.
So you had to go into it knowing year 4, you better be committed to year 4, not year 1, 2,
Yeah,
and
the problem
3.
is, the problem with that, Ray, is there's a number of programs out there now, you know, not only transit, but
Right.
drug recovery programs, all those kind of things that are being funded.
Yeah.
And we certainly don't want to drop them, and you know, the dirty little secret is, at some point, somebody may not fund those anymore, and now what are we gonna do?
Heck,
So I just want to make sure we're not, you know, biting off more than we
I have
deserve.
a- I have a great appreciation for that.
So it's, if I heard you right, it's 488,000 roughly.
42.
Year one,
Mhm.
kind of back to what Mike was saying.
Mhm.
What is year 2 and 3 and 4 cost after the buses are purchased, the signs are purchased? I get it, the bus is depreciated and all that, but
Right.
on like a 5-year plan, it's obviously front-end loaded, right?
Yeah, you're looking at 480, the capital, yeah, the useful life of those will be 5 to 7 years for the vehicles. Stops and signs, much longer. The operating costs at 482,000, you can project 3% inflationary costs per year on average.
Okay, so that 488 did not include the buses or anything?
No,
Yeah, that's the operating.
that's right.
Okay.
So, you know,
That's
we
what
talk
I
about,
mean.
Yeah.
Thank you, I
Yeah.
wanted to clarify.
we talk about expansion plans and different routes. Here's one of the concerns I think that we have as commissioners, and that is we're representing 57,000 people, right? 20,000 of which are within the city or something like that.
Okay.
So, how does this benefit rural folks who need to get to a very confined center or to Sunoco or wherever it might be to work? The problem is why, or the question is, playing devil's advocate,
Yeah.
if this is a city of Tiffin only
Yeah.
thing, then why is the county funding it when it doesn't help the entire county?
I can help with that a little bit. Part of the thought process is if we can, and this is the overall team that's been working together, is if we can institute this bus system in the city of Tiffin, that's gonna free up SCAT's demand service to be able to extend them out
Yep.
into the rural community. Where right now, they do service a lot of in-town service. And by freeing them up, they'll be able to service out to the rural area and bring them in, which is the benefit to the county, while the people in the city are able to use that fixed route schedule versus the demand route. And I get a little confused between the two, even though I know it, I get confused between the two. So it makes that easier. The other benefit to the county is that you're gonna have easier access to sales and services and merchants and restaurants, and so there's a potential thought of, you know, that sales tax increased revenue type of thing that would be coming in, those types of things. So it's the trade-off of your citizens in Tiffin who are using SCAT, which could potentially be using a bus system, will now be, those drivers will now be freed up to go out into the rural community, and the users having ease of access to all these other services, which could increase your sales tax.
I get some logic there, but I think that'd probably be a tough sell.
That's just the thought process.
Okay, I get what you're saying, but,
Eh.
There's not a hard ask of the county at this point, right?
No,
I
no,
mean,
there's
this
no
is just
hard
for
ask.
No.
informational
Right.
purposes.
Yes.
And at some point in the future, it looks like for the next 2 years, there's at least a line of sight to grant funding to start and operate this. Year 3, 4, at that point, there may be some ask of us.
Yeah, and that would be from SCAT, because again, regional planning, I always tell everybody we're the idea people, we're not the implementation people. So we're here to help get the plan put together, and the cities agreed that they thought SCAT would be the appropriate entity to operate. They agree as well, they just have to formalize approval. So it would be at SCAT's discretion on who they go to ask for assistance for operational costs.
But if there's a subsidy, it could come from Tiffin University, it could come from Heidelberg, it could come from Walmart, it could come from county.
It could come from the
But-
industrial complexes, you just don't know where it could come
Yeah,
from.
got it.
But given the, you know, the overall rural nature outside of Tiffin and the county, the real solution long-term is gonna be what Scat's already doing.
Yeah.
With the smaller vans, and maybe increasing funding for that through, maybe that does free up some, and maybe, but that's where some of the money would need to go.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I just thought maybe
Yeah.
you ran across it again where, we concentrated on getting some people to work, but other people were left out of the loop. What was the reaction and what could we do? I mean, I
All
think that-
valid
Yeah,
issues.
especially with getting folks to work and getting them to either retail or industrial.
Yeah.
And especially getting folks to doctor's appointments, those kind of things I think are paramount, and
Right.
that's good stuff.
Right.
So we'd want to help, but we want to make sure there's some money there in the future.
Okay.
So Charlene, back to Shane was saying, there were a lot of names up there, the city, the universities, even some employers, that are trying to find people to work. And you have the county, so, it's not like the county's being asked to fund 100% of this, but we're clearly being asked, you're at the table, and there's something gonna come down the road. But who's facilitating all that? When we leave here, it's a great concept, great plan. SCAT, maybe we need to talk to SCAT here, but we have to make it very clear that, before you come ask us for money, that you have invited all these people to the table, and basically it's a win-win for everybody, which means everybody needs to participate in the solution,
Correct.
i.e. funding and support, right?
Yes, and the end game.
Does that?
Not the end game, but the operational will be as agreed upon by SCAT. And I believe that's where we're at, is that we believe it's all going to be operated by SCAT. SCAT will be maintaining the budget, maintaining grant applications, maintaining, asking for funding, coordination, helping, doing the marketing. Operated is operated, right?
Is SCAT excited about this?
From what I can tell, yeah.
Their
Is it
board,
something they wanna
we
do?
gave a presentation to their board of directors,
Yeah,
and
I'm new, so I'm not aware of that.
they seem pretty enthusiastic
Okay.
about it.
So would this transit advisory committee be formed prior to things happening? And might they be the ones, I know that advisory, but might that be the one to come to us for funding as opposed to SCAT? I mean, SCAT's a part of that certainly, but not the only part of that. So would you form that in advance of this thing happening?
Well, I think that's something locally, you're gonna have to work out the role of the advisory committee, and yet recognizing the authority of the SCAT Board of Directors and how they interplay. I think that's something, that's a local decision.
Okay, so do you see this group reporting to the SCAT Board of Directors?
I see
With
this
advice?
group really looking at the, kind of the oversight of the plan, and when and if the system gets started, how do they see things going with the system? And then you've got the SCAT director as the liaison between the board of directors on this group.
Okay.
And it's more of a advisory, here's how we think things are going, here's what we think needs to be changed. Because you have a much broader representation than just the members on the SCAT board for the area.
Just so I understand then, from an organizational standpoint, the Transit Advisory Board would report to SCAT, the SCAT would then come to us. That's how you see it?
I think so. That's
how it is.
probably,
We would have a seat on that board, but in the end, it's gonna come here, because that's where the money
yes.
is.
Yep.
But I think, Charlene, we need to, good work, by the way.
Thank you.
Uh,
Thank you.
The devil's in the details. We need to get involved with SCAT and let them know that, and I agree with Mike, so it's not, we have this plan, and the commissioners are paying for it, and then they go have this meeting and they talk about what works the best. I think it's the other way around. These people have to meet with SCAT and say, we have input, but we're gonna help support this, we're gonna find 10,000 here, 20,000 there. Somehow, the money has to, we have to think past the grant money.
Correct, and that is definitely Mary's forte when it comes to transportation. She knows how to plan that properly and how to work those partners together. Again, we're just not just, but we're the planning entity on this with RLS, and we're here to facilitate that. I totally agree that we have to understand that the first couple years, maybe even 3 years, really stretching it, are that grant money. And we have to think, okay, we know that's salad, right? We have to plan past that to say, who's gonna help fund this, who's gonna help pay for it? And we've had very in-depth discussions as a steering committee and talking about this, and everybody agrees, you know, we have to have these partners for the Transit Advisory Committee to be able to come together to say, all right, now how do we work together to move forward? And
And that-
that's really what
right.
that is.
And that can start sooner than later when the plan's finalized to help facilitate some of those local match decisions.
Good.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, nice job.
Thank you very much.
You gonna come back in the winter?
Maybe.
Take
So we're gonna
the
wrap this
Take
up
the
before
snowmobile.
snow comes?
Administrator report.
Right, thank you very much.
Just a reminder, Tuesday at 7 o'clock, Bloomville, is our next meeting, evening meeting.
Vicki, is that working your schedule?
I think so.
Because we can change it.
We plan to have a meeting Thursday
You
as
have a
well.
hike or
Yes.
anything?
Yep.
Not this week.
So the address, again, is 74 South Marion Street in Bloomville.
Good.
So I have.
Commissioner reports, Tony?
Really, no report this time.
All right. Mike?
Just, just to get excited about the Christmas lights one more time. I think we got it funded and things are gonna move forward here. And to remind everybody that we will be jointly with the city, Tony's been working on this as well, have a memorial stone for James Roberts. The unveiling will be November 10th at 1 p.m. at near the War Memorial on Cross Parkway, actually over near the gazebo is where the ceremony will happen. We hope to have a number of folks representing the Veterans Council and other veterans organizations there, along with representatives from both the city and the county.
Good, good stuff. Old business, new business.
New business.
Where's your report, by the way?
Huh? I filed it with the
Oh,
administrator.
okay.
Did?
Written testimony is over.
By the way, Commissioner Thomas is in the play this weekend at the Ritz. And,
Oh, my.
I think for your report, you should give us a 30-second plug on the Ritz players and what's going on at our beautiful historic theater.
What I will say is that I am the most despicable character created for the stage, Bob Ewell. And much to many people's satisfaction, I will die on stage.
I wanted you to say that.
Spoilers.
Death of a salesman.
Yeah.
But it's Friday, Saturday night.
Yep, and then
7
Saturday,
o'clock.
Sunday next week.
2 shows on Sunday?
Yeah, I wish. We are doing about 600 high schoolers though for the Discovery Series, so that's good. Classic piece of literature. It's good stuff.
Thank you for your report.
Thank you for your outing.
Okay, I have a request from the sheriff's office. They're asking for a supplemental into their Justice and Mental Health Collaborative Program. It's a total of $3,000. It's $300 into their Medicare, $200 into hospitalization, $2,000 into salaries, and $500 into PRS. I have a fund transfer to be made to the Public Assistance Fund, $65,503.50. This comes from the general fund. It's part of our required amount. They do 2 draws a year. This is their second draw. I have resolution authorizing a fund advance from the general fund to the Justice and Mental Health Collaboration Program Fund. It's the same funding she's putting in the supplements for, $3,000 from the general fund. I I have a resolution authorizing the emergency management service contract with the Seneca County Local Emergency Planning Commission on behalf of the Seneca County Emergency Management System. So our LEPC contracts with our EMA to handle all of their operations. I have a resolution authorizing the signing and submission of a grant application to ODOT for the 5% matching grant, and authorizing Shane Thomas as board president to sign this and other related documentation. This is for the taxiway, 5% from the state. And then I have a resolution authorizing the agreement with Soma Global on behalf of the Seneca County Sheriff's Office. They're changing their, I'm not the techie, but it's their CAD system currently. I think they have a Pro Phoenix, and this company is offering basically more services and better quality at the same price. So I think the city of Tiffin is considering moving. They have Pro Phoenix now, city of Fostoria, and the sheriff. So they're all kind of moving over to this, not costing us any additional, same cost, with more bells and whistles from what I'm understanding. So that's all I have.
I have a question on this, we talked about this before, but on the taxiway, we're gonna do that in spring, right?
Yes,
And so this price is locked in?
yes, yep.
Okay,
The contract we've,
so they're willing to do it in the spring for the
yep,
same price?
that was what they put in their contract.
Thank you.
Okay, motion,
I'll move to approve all the new items, appropriations.
Tony seconds.
Yep.
Any further discussion? Roll call.
Commissioner Cardoso?
Yes.
Commissioner Kirschner?
Yes.
Commissioner Thomas?
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, well, first of all, I think it would be a good idea, Charlene, if we maybe did a little contest amongst some junior high or high school kids about the name of the new transportation system. If we get a catchy acronym, that would be pretty neat.
So the middle schooler in you, do you have an acronym that you want to share with us right now? I know how your mind works.
But I
He's
think-
already thought of
well,
something.
I'll let right now.
Bureau of Adult Detention was always the one I liked. But anyway, so if you could come up, I think it'd be fun to do something like that. Izzy, I think that you probably need to stand to be recognized today. Is today a special day for you? Happy birthday, maybe?
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Isabel. Happy birthday to you.
People ask me what I did with the money, and I say, what money? And they say, the money your mom gave you for singing lessons.
By the way, the naming of the duck will be unveiled at the museum, I think it's the 27th,
The
right?
naming of
Sunday.
the duck,
Yeah, and
The county
students, it's students for the museum. So it's not unprecedented where students would be involved in,
Is duck an acronym for something?
Downtown
Tell me,
urban.
yeah.
Something.
But, yeah, anyhow.
Friday's the downtown trick or treat.
Yes.
We will be participating.
Are we doing it in costume?
We will be participating in any.
You die Friday at trick or treat?
Die once a day.
Yeah, there will be lots and lots of trick-or-treaters coming downtown. We have lots and lots of candy, right?
I like that.
Yes, tomorrow.
Public comments.
My name's Tom Drydenbaugh. You know, that screen's fabulous, but with the technology today, something you could do, I don't know what, to make that screen so the peanut gallery can see it along with everybody. Larger, turn it, come out of the ceiling with it, something.
Okay.
I can't see that.
Can we put one back?
But my eyes are a lot older, I know, but,
No, it's,
I
Mr.
think
Bible, I
there's-
agree, I can't see it either,
I think there's something could be done, because it's a great idea. I mean, that,
but
We have two goals in mind. Both the screen and the commissioner should be brighter.
what do you think?
And these just happen to
Thank
be on our, we got a grant, that safety grant. These are the TVs that the NCOESC got for, so we can use for training, so. They were the size they bought us, and we just happened to be able to utilize them. We can tell, obviously, they're a little small, it's a little hard to read, but
Yeah.
that would just mean more expense for us to put them new or additional.
in that same vein, there was a request by the Board of Elections when we were down there. They need a screen for election results. So, I don't know if they've made that formal request, but
We give them this one, we get a bigger one?
that's what I was thinking. Hand me down, hand me over.
You know, I mean, I know it's an expense, but take that under advisement, but maybe a bracket on the wall over there with the screen turned behind the door.
Something. Yeah.
another
You
screen.
know, so everybody back there can see it right here.
Well, the good news, Tom, it's better than the whiteboard, right?
Oh, yeah.
Other public comments? How was the open house last night? Was that last night?
We had a good open house with a good turnout. This is for the Seneca Wind Project. We held an open house from 3 p.m. to 8 p.m. Folks came by and we were able to answer a lot of questions. The OPSB was set up there as well to answer questions on the process.
That was for the S-Power.
S-Power
project,
Seneca Wind Project.
yes. Those
yes.
that don't know, yeah.
Sorry.
It's same apps?
There are, so I would say that for everybody, generally the maps are the same. There are some shifts, but they're measured in double-digit feet moves, a couple 3-digit feet moves.
Okay.
But for the most part, the layout is similar. And the application is expected to go in the beginning of November.
Okay. All right, good. Anything else?
Nathan,
You do have a friend, Vic.
Yeah. Enjoy that, enjoy being here.
How's
Welcome
everybody
back.
doing today?
good.
Nate Heiser, Sandusky Street, Fostoria. I just kind of wanted to, I always appreciate you guys' willingness to listen and kind of have a dialogue. I always appreciate that, and I'm thankful that we have the ability to do that. So, I just kind of want to give a few updates, I guess, and as things stand now, when that license is up for renewal in, well, it'll be December, would you support it?
For the.
Sunny Farms landfill, I apologize.
Yeah,
Yep.
Sunny Farm, okay.
We really didn't take much stand on that before. We just asked the health department to, you know, take a look at it, because it's not our direct jurisdiction, so. it's
Sure,
a little bit of
but-
a loaded question.
Okay,
So what are you getting to? Just tell us what you're getting to.
You move to the close?
Yeah.
now, we got a few things before that.
So you want to set us up where you knock us down? Is that
Yes.
what I'm saying?
That's better than what I was, what
So
I
the
thought
answers
you
are
might say.
maybe. Go ahead and get to the
Yeah,
end.
I figured that would have been the answer.
Yeah.
So, the amended host agreement that was amended. When I first showed up here, a year or so ago, whatever, I was very adamant that that was the direction we needed to go, was that host agreement. It needed to be amended, okay? The solid waste district said it was gonna take a year and a half. I don't know if you heard that. It's on record. They said that. He said it to me. Said it to everybody. To get that done. A year and a half, that's a long time. So I started going to policy committee meetings and start to get the ball rolling, okay? Let's plan for this, because it's coming up in a year and a half. Let's not wait till 14 months and say 2 months left and, get some input. I realized right when it happened that the host agreement was amended. How could that be? when it took a year and a half to amend, why was nobody informed? What changed in the host agreement? Because I still want to know, can the board modify the agreement without the panel and the policy committee? There was a hint that somebody says, hey, maybe Nate should go on that policy committee. Never got a call. Love to do that. I'd love to put my input. Even if I wasn't on it, I would just like to show up and say, hey, here's my concerns. You know, let's address these, you know, take this into consideration. And keep in mind, not one person is on that policy committee is from this area, Fostoria, except for the one township trustee that's given that position because of the trustee position. That's why he's on there, not because, you know, anything other than that.
So let me just make sure that everybody's on the same page here. So the solid waste district, 3 counties, 9 commissioners operate the solid waste district. Underneath that, there's a policy committee,
21 individuals.
21 individuals that talk about solid waste across the whole jurisdiction. And then within that, it talks about inflow, outflow of solid waste. And the amendment that you're discussing talks about how the fee structure works for flow into resident solid waste facilities. So that, I mean, just so everybody's clear.
Is that the host agreement?
So that was amended to rectify a classification issue. I'm just making sure that we're all on the same.
Could you speak to that? What was changed, that fee issue?
Right.
Exactly.
Yep.
What happened, please?
Yeah. So what it was, originally it was if it's out of state or if it's construction and demolition debris, it wasn't paid there wasn't a fee assessed on it for the solid waste district. If it was solid waste, it was charged a fee so that it would go to, that funding would go to the solid waste district. In the original EPA finding, there was, if it were pulverized material and not identifiable, then it was considered solid waste, not construction and demolition debris,
Yep.
regardless of what the origin was. And so there became a contentious issue where the material was being classified as construction and demolition debris, and it wasn't being classified as solid waste, much to the chagrin of the solid waste district, because they were losing funding. So as the time went on, this amount got to be pretty large that they weren't being paid on, the solid waste district wasn't. And when Sunny Farms new management came in, they're like, this is broken, we need to fix it. We will continue to classify our material as we know it, construction and demolition debris or solid waste. Still have to do that for the EPA, they still have to do it for the health district, it still has to have it. But for purposes of compensating the solid waste district, we're just going to pay you a fixed fee for every ton that goes in there. That way we don't have to argue about classification.
You want
So-
the straight tonnage
Yeah,
on C&D material and MSW?
that's correct.
And they went back, we had a retro check, right, back. They paid a fee.
Yeah, so that was
farm
the-
paid up.
What's the point of that? So they didn't have to battle back and forth of this isn't classified as C&D, this is MSW, this is solid waste. So
So there was a stipulation from the Ohio EPA that if it wasn't recognized,
I reckon I know that.
yeah, so, I mean, well, not everybody knows, so we just make sure everybody else, if it's not recognized, then it's solid waste. So you have stuff that's garbage, we know what that is, right? Stinks, whatever, right? And then we've got stuff that's construction and demolition debris, we know what that is. In the middle, there was this pulverized material, and it was unique to Fostoria that,
Auto shred residue or auto shred.
yeah, that kind of discontinued, but, you know, as they scooped everything up, pulverized it and got it in the rail car, There was a question as to what it was. And so that's where the dispute was. And in order to not have that dispute in the future, the Solid Waste Board accepted a proposal that said, look, we're not gonna fight about it, let's just level it across all tons, and then that takes the solid waste, the health department still has to do it, the EPA still has to do it, Sunny Farm still has to classify all that stuff, but just for purposes of accounting for the tonnage in and out, Solid Waste District says, we don't care, a ton's a ton.
So who's determining what is C&D, MSW, what's the classification? Who's determining that when it comes in?
It's still self-report, and it's still
Is there anybody watching?
OEPA. That's a question for OEPA. I'm just speaking to, there's no change at all in the classifications, only for the accounting purposes at the Solid Waste District.
Well, see, because one of the discussions that we had.
So I just want to make sure that's
Yeah,
clear.
That's
one of the
good
discussions we had at OSS was that, you know, we could have hired somebody full-time to be there to decide what that material was as was coming in. But that expense greatly exceeded any potential benefits that we would have received, OSS would have received, from the difference between construction and solid waste.
I mean, they were owed millions of dollars. So if you had had somebody there and paid them $60,000 a year, you're going to get those millions of dollars and you're not going to lose them. They're not going to lie and say that.
Yeah, I mean, there was some question as to whether or not that stipulation was even legal.
And I'm glad that, you know, we're able to make the solid waste district's life easier. You know, and to me that says that less oversight on site if we're going to straight tonnages, because now the solid waste district, they did care what was coming in and they wanted to know what was what. Now they don't care.
Yeah, but I think you're overemphasizing the Solid Waste District's role in regulating the landfill. We're just a passive part of that. The health department, the OEPA, the pressure is on them to monitor, to make sure that appropriate things are coming in there. Nothing's changed with that. In fact, it's been strengthened since in the past year.
So Nate, you realize we're getting more money now, right?
Okay.
Solid Waste District gets more money.
It's not about the money
No, but,
to me.
but we're just talking Solid Waste District.
Okay. The solid waste, their mission is to create long-term life and recycle methods.
Right.
20 years, you know, life at least for these landfills. This place isn't going to make it 20 years. When that host agreement was in there, they should have done something more. They should have said, okay, we're going to reduce the tonnage to extend this to 20 years, like our mission statement says. But that's not the case. So I feel like, and we didn't know about it, and I wish there had been public input on that, because we would have liked to have talked. But now we're back against the wall a little bit, and things have happened, and we all feel like it was a little bit unfair, you know? Because I've been preaching the host agreement from day one. Day one, I tell everybody, you know, they shut me down at one of the meetings because I said this is the only way that we're going to fix this, you know, and here we are, amended that sucker, and, you know, we had an opportunity there, I think, to make some real change, and I think it slipped away from us a little bit.
I don't even remember those amendments being discussed. Was it a public meeting at which the amendments were discussed?
Mm-hmm. And we had executive session.
But
Yeah,
some-
it was part of the agenda.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't feel that's right. And then, I guess we can move on from that. The H2S levels. Those have gone down. There's no more triple digits. There's no more hundreds, 200s. Okay, that's great. You know, we're not getting choked out. Seriously. But November, 50, 30, 55, 29, 26, 23, off-site. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 days, multiple readings above the limits last month.
Where was it taken?
The health departments and EPA's, those are those reports from them.
And we're certain that that's a result of the solid, or the waste, and not a result of other.
Like
gas.
pig farms?
Yeah, or.
I'm glad you said that.
Okay.
Because that's perfect
or other-
segue.
Not only that, but other things.
Sure.
You know.
We talked to the hunter yesterday, And he said that he has never had a recorded reading above 5 for any manure or hog farms on site.
Okay, it wasn't just talk about it. I was talking about any other possible
And,
sources.
and we talked to him about the asphalt plant down there. And he said if you were on site, maybe you would get something over there, but that's not what it's coming from. And and we were on the phone, and my sister said, she was right beside it. She was right beside it. And she said, am I spot on when I make the calls and the wind direction? Am I on, or could this a pig farm, or could this be another smell like everybody's trying to manipulate and say? He said, no, you are spot on. That's what he said. Hunter Blessings, the guy that's in charge of the landfill out there, he told us we were spot on. He was on speakerphone, we both heard it, and we said, okay, good, because we want to make sure we're right and not putting out false information. Maybe it is a pig farm or something like that. We want to be crystal clear. So they switched over. H2S has gone down, okay? Back in October, November, December of 18, the SO readings, the sulfur dioxide coming off the flares, and they're burning the methane, the H2S, and the byproduct of that is the sulfur dioxide. And those monthly totals back then were 52, 69, and granted the H2S levels were up. And so now we're coming into June, July, August, September. The highest reading in June was 239 for the sulfur dioxide. That's 5 times what it was before. Almost 5 times what it was before. Now, we traded off H2S, and now we're getting sulfur dioxide blowing across and into my sister's house. Because she's right there. She gets a lot of that west wind, hits her, blows it right across. Now, why aren't we focusing on the sulfur dioxide measures? And on that same note, there is a PSD permit under Ohio law. The PSD rules say under the Title V Clean Air Act makes them a major source of pollution for greenhouse gas when they're over 100 tons per year. Okay? We're 240 in 1 month. No bells are going off. I just don't understand, you know? So now we're going fast forward here. The EPA, which isn't enforcing whatsoever, said, okay, well, the rolling tonnage in a year is supposed to be 480 rolling tons in 1 year. Okay? They just increased it. Now they're allowed 248 tons a month because they said this is an interim period where they're trying to fix and make changes. Okay? Interim period ends today. That's what he told me. It ends today. So we went from 480 tons a year to 3,000. And when that sulfur dioxide, it attaches to particles, you know, and it doesn't just blow away. It can attach to particles, and you can breathe that stuff in. And it is not helpful. It's not healthy for foliage. I mean, crops, trees, it's not healthy for that. So we need to, and then the call logs. 24 pages last month, 28 pages the month before. The calls my sister made on one particular day when that sulfur dioxide was in her house, the call line was not available. We made a note of that. I don't know if they're going to fix it or not. But it seems like on the highest days, that phone isn't available, and we need to have consistency, I guess.
Okay, Nate, there's a ton of information that you're talking about here, right? Most of it's above my pay grade. So we need to have something in writing, your concerns, so that we can at least try to answer them. I can't answer your individual questions. Commissioner Thomas did a great job explaining what's going on with the payment. But for us to attempt, you spent a whole lot more time doing your research than we could possibly spend here understanding what you're telling us. And I don't know whether so many parts per million is good, bad, or indifferent. I know you said a number of things during your presentation. So you need to give us your concerns so that we can then in turn give it to Sunny Farms or talk to the OSS about it. But there's no way we can do anything having a conversation like this. We need to have the background information in writing so we can at least have a chance to look at it.
That's why I wanted to have it on the record. But what you just said is you're going to take this information and go to Sunny Farms.
Well, who else are we gonna get the grant answers
A
from?
lawyer, an attorney, an environmental lawyer to represent the health department in this county and the citizens. I mean, geez, oh Pete, nobody understands this stuff. I'm learning it now. I don't want to understand
I didn't say
it.
that to upset you. I said it that, maybe Sunny Farms isn't the place. Maybe the health department is the place. But at least we have to have the information detailed and articulated to us so we have a chance to understand what your concerns are.
We've reached out to the health department a few times, and I've got copies of emails. No one ever got back to us.
Okay. Well, I think part of the problem is that you have to understand what you're talking about before you can make an argument. You obviously do. I don't. I don't understand what you're talking about here. I gotta be honest with you. I don't understand what you're telling me.
And maybe we could talk to the health department, maybe, run into Beth sometime and say, look, Joe Dunham said, when you approve that permit, hire a professional. This consent order is like, I don't know, 50 pages or something. You need a professional to skim through this and make timelines and check things. And, you get $1 million a year off that place. Why can't you pay somebody $100,000, $150,000 and hire the best person in 5 states? That would show the citizens that, we mean business. Instead of Sunny Farms saying, well, everything's good, less odors. Well, you just turned H2S into sulfur dioxide. No, that's magic trick, fool everybody. That's not the case. That's not the case. And the consent order, the EPA isn't enforcing it all. We cannot count on the EPA to do anything. We cannot count on them whatsoever. So we have to make our own decisions based on that host agreement and input from the citizens and everyone else in that host agreement. I'll say it until I'm blue in the face. The host agreement is where it's at. That's how we make the changes, and that's how we're going to make the best impact for the citizens of this county. The joint agreement, I still think we need out. I know there might be some extenuating circumstances that may come up that would allow us to. I don't know what those are. I was hoping somebody may have looked into that to see, because those commissioners said, oh, I'm going to call you and talk to you. I'm going to call you and talk to you. No one ever called, not in the slightest. And I'll tell everybody how I feel, because I'm not looking out for me. I'm looking out for everybody in the county. It's just not fair. And to say the odors are a thing of the past, come on. EPA report says right there, 20-some over the 15 parts per million limit in the month of September. We don't even have October. That's frustrating. I feel like we blew our chance with that host agreement. We had it right there, and now, we're going to spend another year and a half twiddling away at this new host agreement, and yet we want input. We want input. We want to sit down and discuss our concerns, because we don't feel like anybody's taking us serious. And because we backed off for a few months, we give them some time. They wanted a little bit of time, we gave them some time. And now you're not getting the 100 to 200 parts per billion readings. You're getting 50s, 60s, which still smells. It's still above the limit. It's still not allowed. But yet the EPA has done absolutely nothing to enforce. So it's on us.
Yeah.
It's on us.
So what I would say, Nate, is, we certainly want to give you this forum to bring these issues forward. You understand that we don't regulate the landfill, and I think everybody else understands that. And the health department and the EPA have responsibility for that. We want to help, and we want to be responsive, and I think we've done that in the past. As far as the host agreement goes, that process will be wrapping up. I encourage you to put your name in the hat to talk about it, because there will be a big discussion. There's a new executive director up there. She's bright, she's on it. I think you'll find her very amenable to that conversation. But you just have to understand that we're not going to take any action here that's going to change your life.
I understand that.
We're happy to give you this forum, and
I appreciate that.
And we typically like to hold people to 3 minutes. You had a lot to say. Yeah. We've given you a lot of time. So
you've been very courteous in that regard, and I very much appreciate that.
When is that meeting? Is there a meeting date?
Do you have Kathy Rocco's information?
I don't know who that is.
She's the new administrator.
Well, yeah, that's,
We know.
is Tim around at all?
Can you get it?
Yeah.
Tim's not around at all.
I would have ran to.
Well, Nate, I would say, just my short tenure, I think, that if I'm reading you right, you're feeling there's a settlement, but really nothing's changed.
No.
That's what you're saying.
I feel like we made the
Yeah.
solid waste district's life easier. Now they don't have to worry about fees and things, which, that basically gave us some oversight. Now it's like, who really even cares what it is? Because it was all about the money. That seems to be what everything is about, the money. So when you hit them in the money pocket, then it's like, okay, well, now.
Well, we'll just put solid waste off to the side, okay, back to the health board. So, our health board renewed their permit, but said to them, this is for a year, and you're gonna come back to us again, and we're gonna have to go through this. And Sunny Farm, in my mind, has done a lot. They've done a lot to rectify the situation. Maybe it's not fast enough, maybe the end game's not there yet. But in your view, I think you're vetting out that you don't feel like you're getting listened to. I think on the health department, you need to keep going to them, because they're the ones that are gonna renew the permit. And as far as the solid waste goes, we'll get you the date on when that meeting is. And,
I already know.
okay, then show up there, and I think that's where we're at.
That the attorney that they had at the solid waste district said that we couldn't attach some rules to that host agreement, but after sitting back and thinking about it, I know he represents the solid waste district in their best interest, but the health department's attorney said that we can. So we're gonna look at that.
And I just want to make it sure that it's crystal clear. I don't think we completely agree on this, but the solid waste district had no regulatory authority over how the operation of the landfill is going, or what classification could be in there.
Unless it relates to the host agreement and changing that.
And that's even suspect. I mean, it's a stretch. So, I mean, it's the health department, the EPA.
Yeah. And the EPA is not helping, so we're on our own, and we gotta look out for each other. We all live in this area,
Yeah.
and we gotta do what's in the best interest for the community. And
Yeah, we want it to be good. I mean, we want it to be.
wish
Thanks.
it was.
Yeah,
Thank
yeah.
you.
This is
We're
the
with you.
new
Thanks,
director's name.
All right. Anything else? With the order, thank you. We're adjourned.
Hey, Dan.
Thanks for coming in, Nate.
Is that